Good morning and welcome to the daily cyber briefing for Monday, the 24th of June. I'm Stephen Ridgway. Facebook's PrestaShop module is being exploited to steal credit cards. So, PrestaShop, if you don't know, is an open source e-commerce platform that allows individuals and businesses to create and manage online stores. It's reasonably popular. It's got something in the region of 300,000 online stores. It's driving about 300,000 online stores. There is promo kits. PK Facebook add-on is a module that allows shop visitors to log in using their Facebook accounts. So this kind of social media based SSO is increasingly common. Has a vulnerability being tracked as CVE 2024-36680. It's a SQL injection vulnerability in the Facebook Connect.php Ajax script, which allows attackers to trigger SQL injection using HTTP requests. So reasonably serious, certainly serious enough to take some action to protect yourselves against this if this is one of the tools that you are using. Recommendations are, as always, to patch and upgrade, keep on top of these things. It is also possible that you can put a web application firewall in front of this that should be able to catch SQL injection and cross-site scripting attacks, because they are relatively well known these days and fairly straightforward to identify and to prevent. So if you're using PrestaShop and have got the Facebook add-in, then be aware it needs an update. So a little bit more information is coming out around the Total Fitness data leak. It does appear that amongst the photos of customers and staff, members and staff, the Know Your Customer information has been leaked, and card data has been leaked. Now, Know Your Customer information, that's all about making sure that you're not doing business with criminals, basically. It contains various pieces of information like, what's your passport, what's your home address, potentially what immigration details, what your immigration details are, those sorts of things. This stuff appears to have been leaked, so recommendations then would be, at the moment, if you are a member of Total Fitness, be extra vigilant extra vigilant for potential phishing or spear phishing, something that looks targeted, because they will potentially know quite a lot about you from that. And we'll also have your photograph, quite possibly. Raises interesting questions about how genuinely useful is photograph information for these sorts of, do you really need to be holding that in quite the way that they do? Good question, don't know. An article in the Register that points out that there are still an uncomfortably high percentage of malicious apps in Google's App Store, or Chrome extensions in this particular case. Google claims that about 1% of apps fail their tests. However, researchers are saying, well, that is possibly underestimating what's going on, because they're only actually looking for identified malicious apps rather than apps that contain malware, violate the Chrome Web Store policy, or contain vulnerable code. Those are generically referred to as security noteworthy extensions, SNEs, and the percentage of SNEs apparently is much higher. So, we said it before, we were talking about this last week. If you are going to be using extensions in Chrome, or in fact anything that you are thinking of downloading from some kind of app store, Play Store, whatever you want to call it, be cautious. Make sure, firstly, that you really need it. Secondly, do try to go for apps that have that come from reputable, known developers. You can't guarantee that things will be okay, but the more obscure the app, the more likely it is, extension, the more likely it is to have at least have vulnerabilities in it. And the other side of that, the other point there, I suppose, I'm struggling with words, it's a Monday, is that if the extension is claiming to do something which is too good to be true, it's probably too good to be true. So following on from last week's announcement that the US Treasury Department has banned Kaspersky from the US, they have now sanctioned 12 Kaspersky executives. So that is interesting, because that does indicate that whilst I think we've all been crossing our fingers and hoping that Kaspersky wasn't too deeply embedded into the Russian Russian politics, it does look like there probably has been, there is, probably too much of a close relationship. That the influence that the Kremlin has over Kaspersky poses a significant risk. Especially Russian-backed malicious groups are known. I mean, they are very commonly looking for ways in which they can disable endpoint protection. Is one of the things that, all malicious groups do that. But if your protections are based around something which is also under control or under the influence of the groups that you are particularly worried about protecting yourself against, then you are probably going to be in trouble with this stuff. And then finally from me, came across a very interesting article in Cybersecurity News. So there have been, over the last few years, improvements to the way in which passwords can be brute forced. So brute forcing, traditionally, it's just trying combinations of characters, numbers, so on and so forth, until you eventually find the right, the combination that works. And a researcher from Kaspersky, interestingly, has been talking about smart guessing algorithms. So if you think of it this way, okay, most human-generated passwords are not truly random. So if you ask somebody to type random keys on the keyboard, they will tend to gravitate towards the keys in the center of the keyboard. So you get a disproportionate number of characters from the center of the keyboard. People have a tendency to put dates or dictionary words into passwords. Now, I know there was a while back a thought that passphrases would be better than passwords. I think there is, and there's, I think at the time that was probably true. I think now anything which has got a recognizable pattern in it is probably more easily broken than or brute forced than you would expect. So, put it in context. Using smart guessing algorithms that have been trained on a data set of passwords to determine the frequency of various character combinations. The number of passwords, the percentage of passwords that can be cracked in under a minute is roughly 45%. So pure brute force gets about 10% these days, but with smart guessing, you're getting to about 45%. For passwords, if you are looking at how many passwords can be cracked between 1 minute and 1 hour, pure brute forcing gets about 20% of those, but smart guessing with brute forcing gets about nearly 60% of passwords. So it is a timely reminder that passwords need to be long and complex. They also should not be reused from one service to another. And I would say use a password manager. Yes, I know there are arguments around, putting all your eggs in one basket, blah, 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 all that sort of stuff. But the other side of it is, if you're using passwords and you're trying to manage them yourselves, how many genuinely long and complex passwords can you actually manage? Long, by long, I mean, multiple, not just like 6, 8, 10 characters, but 20, 30, 40 character passwords with uppercase, lowercase numbers and special characters included within them. Let's think about it. How often are you going to sit there and type that stuff in? The answer is pretty much you're not going to, unless you absolutely have to. Use a password manager and protect the password manager well, and then use genuinely long, complex and unique passwords for all your services. Is probably the best thing you can do to protect passwords. And as always, a very strong recommendation from me and from us is use MFA wherever you can use MFA. It is not an irritation. It is not difficult to implement or use for most services. It is equally not a solution to all account takeover risks. However, it does make things much more complicated. So definitely think about this. Passwords themselves are really not adequate other than for trivial services, and if you're reusing the passwords, you are putting yourselves at risk. That's all from me for today. I hope you have a great Monday, and I will